I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit yesterday. I tried not to, and I don't think I did. You know, you get that kind of gag reflex and you think you might have thrown up in your mouth, but you don't actually do. I think I had that yesterday when I was watching Kansas Governor Laura Kelly's State of the State. She had her State of the State yesterday, and then you also had Mike Kehoe on the Missouri side do their State of the State yesterday. So Kansas and Missouri both starting their legislative sessions this week. So the governor does like the president does with a State of the Union. So I'm watching both of these and flipping through them and checking out, making sure I don't miss anything for today's show. And it was only a matter of time before Governor Kelly was going to mention the Chiefs jumping across the state line. And she said something that stood out to me above the rest. And no matter what you think about the move is not really the point of this commentary. The commentary that Laura Kelly made yesterday is classic economic development math nonsense that is not based in reality.
We were able to accomplish this amazing feat for two reasons. First, we made Kansas a place the Chiefs want to call home, with a strong economy, a strong workforce, strong communities, and of course, an extraordinary fan base. And second, because a bipartisan team of leaders in this chamber, along with the local officials we just recognized, and many members of my administration, worked together to make this happen.
Okay, all right, but let's pump the brakes there, Laura Kelly. Pump the brakes. We made the Chiefs an offer that they wanted to call us home. Someone who's in the know on these negotiations told me that basically what happened here is that at the 11th hour, going up against the deadline, that Thursday, Friday before the announcement on Monday when things really started to leak, the Chiefs went back to Kansas and they basically said, we need X, Y, and Z. Like, we need all of this. And the Chiefs were almost shocked that Kansas said, yeah, sure. So, yes, it's a lot about the 70% or upwards of 70% of the stadium that was going to be funded by the Star Bond. That's absolutely true. And that's obviously the biggest part of the deal. But, I mean, basically, whatever the Chiefs asked for in Kansas, the guys and gals would just come back and be like, yeah, sure, whatever you want. I mean, they just gave it all up. And then the Chiefs were finally like, can we say no to this? We can't do it. So for Laura Kelly to be like, the Chiefs really wanted to call the state of Kansas home. It's like the 80-year-old guy with the 25-year-old girlfriend who's convinced that she's in it for the love. That's what it is. Okay, it's Bill Belichick and his little girlfriend prancing around, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. That's what this is. Laura Kelly is the old man billionaire with the 30-year-old girlfriend on his arm or her arm. So maybe for her, it's like the boyfriend. All right, whatever you want to do. However you want to frame this thing, you get the point. And then when she goes on to say, they love our workforce and the fans, it's the same fans. It's the same group of people. The people in Kansas who are fans are going to be fans. The people in Missouri who are fans are going to be fans. It's the same people who are going to be fans. It's not Kansas versus Missouri. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about the Chiefs' kingdom. And that's all of us on both sides of state line. But the way Laura Kelly frames it, she makes it seem like, these fans on the Kansas side are really what drove the decision. No. And maybe some of you get caught up in this like Kansas versus Missouri thing. I don't. It's irrelevant to me. And it's a totally misinterpreted analysis of what just happened over the last few months or couple of years. And then she highlights the workforce. It's the same workforce as well. You think the Chiefs are going to fire a bunch of people that live in Missouri to hire people who work in Kansas and live in Kansas on like the corporate side for this corporate headquarters? It's all the same people. They're just shifting from Arrowhead to either Olathe or KCK. That's it. It's the same people. It's the same fans. It's more or less the same exact operation, plus some mixed use and apartments and maybe some other events. But man, and I'm watching Laura Kelly yesterday as she's giving the speech, and when she brings up the Chiefs, she's got Dan Hawkins, the Speaker of the House, behind her. She's got Ty Masterson behind her. They're the House Speaker and the Senate President. And I don't know if they just had an itch, but they started to kind of squirm in their seat a little bit. You know, you readjust yourself when you get a little uneasy. You know how that is. You're in a meeting, right? And you start to get a little nervous, so you just start like moving around a hair. You don't even know you're doing it. They both started to move around and squirm a little bit. And I was like, gosh. And you just laid this thing out there for her on a silver platter to take all the credit for. Way to go. And then on the Missouri side of the state line, you had Mike Kehoe. And listen, it's been a rough few weeks for Mike Kehoe, right? He didn't want to be the governor who oversaw the state when you lose the Chiefs, but he appears to be kind of full steam ahead. I'm trying to get him on the show this week if we can. It's not going to happen today. We'll have on our buddy Scott Fawn from the Missouri Times. No one knows Jeff City as well as Scott Fawn. He will be here at 9 o'clock on KCMO. But Mike Kehoe was very much focused on this idea of phasing out the income tax in Missouri. And it's a noble thing to want to do. Some of the most successful states, economically speaking, in this country obviously do not have a state income tax. Led by Florida, you can throw Texas in there. Wyoming's in the mix as well. I believe Tennessee is part of that group. There's about 7, 8 states that have no income tax, and they are some of the most successful states in America. So Mike Kehoe's like, hey, how do we do that? What can we do? Here's what he had to say yesterday during his State of the State.
If we are serious about building a foundation for growth, to compete rather than be complacent, then we must begin the work now to phase out and eliminate Missouri's individual income tax. You see, we can do both. We can maintain a balanced budget that supports essential services and pursue a tax policy that improves Missouri's competitiveness.
All right, that sounds good. He's got a problem, though. Missouri has been spending too much money, like all of these states have been spending too much money. Not every single state, but many states will brag about the surplus that they have had in recent years. The main reason that any state is sitting on a surplus, including Kansas and Missouri, is because of COVID money. These states got billions of dollars in COVID money back in 2020. And they just basically stockpiled it, and then most of them spent it. Now, some of them are still sitting on a decent surplus, but in Missouri, that revenue surplus that was nearly $8 billion a few years ago is going to be exhausted by the end of the upcoming fiscal year. So Mike Kehoe's in a weird spot where he's going to figure out how to try to phase out the income tax, which is, once again, something I'm a huge proponent of. But to do it, he's got to slow down spending. So the governor yesterday proposed $600 million in general revenue being spent in the current budget from his proposal for the coming years. He wants to cut $600 million. Those cuts will make room for increases in demands on general revenue due to the depletion of funds that were used to substitute for general revenue in past budgets. So he wants to slice about $600 million to then get to a place where you're fiscally more responsible, and then you can start phasing out the income tax. I'm a fan of it. But by the way, don't do it the way Brownback did in Kansas. At least he's acknowledging we've got to cut, because the problem on the Kansas side, when you talk to anybody who was involved in the legislature then, they will readily admit to you today, if they're being honest, that they cut too quickly and they did not cut enough spending. They cut the income tax too quickly, and they did not rein in government like they needed to make this work. Because businesses don't just like magically get up and go. They don't see the headline in CNBC. Hey, look, Missouri dropped its state income tax. Let's pick up our massive operation and go from Alabama or California or Illinois to Missouri tomorrow. Like, that stuff takes time for any business of scale. So you have to let it go for a few years before you can tell whether or not it's going to be a success. And then, of course, you got to rein in the spending in the meantime to make up for it. Or you got to make the money somewhere else. So it's not something that can be done in a vacuum. It's not something that can be done just snap your fingers and go. Kansas tried that, and it failed colossally. And now, unfortunately, all the big government rubes out there always point to Kansas's failed experiment as like, this is why you can't cut the income tax. No, you can. You just have to do it right. And I believe in Mike Kehoe. I believe in his leadership. I think he will do it right. But the reality was, during the Mike Parson era into Mike Kehoe's first year last year, they were not as fiscally responsible in Jeff City as you would hope a ruby red state legislature would be. And now as they pursue this state income tax removal, I hope that they realize, boy, that's got to start, and it's got to start this year. Because all these states have been flush with cash, and they've overspent, and now the bills come and due. 913-408-7957 is how you join us. Text the show this morning at 614 on KCMO. Thanks for listening to us on 95.7 FM. Of course, we're always on the stream. Yes, the stream's back up and running this morning. It was back by about 7:30 yesterday, but no glitches to start the show. So we were in a much better spot on a Wednesday morning than we were yesterday, outside of the weather. I like the weather yesterday better, John.
I like your insight on the brownback situation, you see, because people will holler, oh, the brownback, and that casts a cloud that people don't quite understand how it happened. But also saying, well, we just haven't tried it right, kind of rings a little weird. So you're better off selling the point of why it didn't work.
Yes, and Jake LaTurner at a Politics and a Pint before COVID, when he was the state treasurer, and I forget what he was running for, but we did a Politics and a Pint with him, and he was in the legislature at the time, and he laid it out perfectly.
I think he was running for south of here, wasn't he?
Yes,
the district was Ottawa.
District 2, yes. That's right. That's what it was.
So, right, that's great information to remember and know when you hear these arguments.
Yep, exactly. We've got, speaking of Kansas, Roger Marshall's going to be here at 6:35. We'll talk about his credit card plan. He's going after the credit card companies. Trump's on board. Does it actually make sense? Roger Marshall will be here on that coming up in less than 20 minutes on KCMO. In the meantime, this tragedy in the Northland, my goodness, just horrible. We have more details on what happened in the shooting up north, and we'll share it with you coming up next on KCMO. We found out who the victim was and who the alleged shooter was in this terrible situation that happened up in the Northland. So we have found out that the man who was shot and killed yesterday, or Monday morning, was 41-year-old Chris Wells. Prosecutors have charged Jeffrey King in connection to this deadly shooting in the Northland. The 41-year-old father lived near Wells. It was a neighborhood dispute. This guy, King, apparently was just a menace up in the Northland. I mean, if you haven't seen the pictures on local news of this guy's home, he had trailers and boats and, just garbage all over his front lawn. It's like he was living in the front yard of his house. And as we've learned over the last 24 hours, this guy, Jeffrey King, was somebody who the neighborhood called 311 about all the time in Kansas City. There were multiple disputes and issues between this guy, King, and his neighbors. He was crude towards women. He would shine lights in people's homes. Obviously, a highly disturbed individual. And then as the allegation goes, this guy gets into an argument with Chris Wells on Monday morning, and Jeffrey King ends up shooting him 13 times and killing the father of 4 kids. 8 times in the back. And I saw this on a Facebook page yesterday that Chris Wells had posted here as recently as July on Facebook about the fact that KCPD and the city of Kansas City, Missouri was not doing enough about this guy, King. Chris Wells tagged Mayor Lucas in a Facebook post on July 11th of last summer. And he writes here, boy, the city of Kansas City and KCPD are failing. They are letting this guy on 78th Street get away with whatever he wants. Now, this is in reference to Jeffrey King, who shot and killed this man, Chris Wells, who was posting about it on Facebook as recently as July 11th. He writes here, you call 311 about cars that haven't moved since May. They tell you to call KCPD. Call KCPD. They tell you to call 311. Pass the buck. In the meantime, Kids have to be affected. School buses, as simple as crossing a congested street, neighbors get terrorized. But it's okay because he's parked legally. Don't worry about the fact that people who live on this street can't park anywhere. New drivers are forced to find another way around to avoid one-lane traffic due to his cars taking up most of the street. Do your damn job, Chris Wells writes back in July. He has already caused a car wreck. Are we waiting till someone gets seriously hurt? Come on, Kansas City, you have to do better. Kansas City and Mayor Lucas, is this how we are running the city? As a lifelong Kansas City resident, at this point, I can't wait to move out of this city. Do your job. First chance I get, I'll hit the city with and then he throws up a peace sign emoji. So this person, Jeffrey King, who was alleged to have shot and killed Chris Wells on Monday morning, was clearly a menace to the neighborhood, and as a result, a menace to Kansas City. And 311 didn't do anything about it. KCPD wouldn't do anything about it. City Hall obviously would not do anything about it. And when you think about what your local government is supposed to do during a time when local government has gotten bigger and fatter and juicier than ever, you look at whether it's Kansas City, whether it's Overland Park, you go around the metro, and cities have exploded in terms of how much money they've spent. And a lot of it is really in the wake of COVID and the money they had to spend and what they've done since then policy-wise. And they fail at the basics. That's what this is. This is an example of the Kansas City government failing at the very basics, and now a 41-year-old father of four is dead because of it. As the city gets set to ask you for your earnings tax money here coming up in April, and they tell you they need it for basic services, ask them what the heck they're doing when it comes to the basics like what Chris Wells was asking for. As a law-abiding, tax-paying resident in the Northland, who had not just him, it was not just personal beef between him and this guy, Jeff King. There were apparently dozens of neighbors who were fed up with this guy and the menace that he was to law-abiding, tax-paying residents in Kansas City, Missouri. And the people who are supposed to protect them did absolutely nothing and passed the buck every chance they got. At some point, leadership is going to have to pay a political price for all of this. And this is an example in the Northland in particular. And remember, we're a year and a half away from a mayor's race in Kansas City. There has never been a mayor from the Northland. And at a time when the Northland is the fastest growing, most booming part of Kansas City, it feels like a pretty interesting time to maybe explore that possibility and get the Northland the love that it deserves from the standpoint of economics, from the standpoint of public safety, and the love that for too long has been given to south of the river that north of the river has never received, but should be receiving by now. And this is an absolute tragedy, what happened to Chris Wells. There was a vigil last night right there on 78th Street to honor and remember his life and what he did for his neighborhood and his family after he was shot and killed by this guy, Jeffrey King, allegedly on Monday morning. And what an absolute tragedy it is. There is a Give in Kind fundraiser to help support the Wells family. We will share that on the KCMO Talk Radio social media pages as well, so you can see that and consider a donation there. We will be up in the Northland tonight in Liberty at 3 Halves Brewing. Myself and Keatsman will be there. There is still time to RSVP if you want to join us at KCMOTalkRadio.com. That is from 5 to 7 o'clock. So the President of the United States did a one-on-one last night with CBS News, and he was asked by the anchor on CBS Evening News what message he would send to Renee Good's father. Now, Renee Good's parents, as we found out last week when this whole thing happened, live in Valley Falls, Kansas. And we found out last night, and I wondered if this was going to turn out to be the case. At least his or her father is a big supporter of President Trump's. And Valley Falls looks like it's just due northeast of Topeka. So 95.7 may come in loud and clear in Valley Falls. It's kind of southeast of Holton, southwest of Nortonville, due west of Leavenworth. So it's not in the Kansas City metro by any means, but, it's in the region, certainly.
Just north of Perry Lake.
There you go. Very nice, Mark.
Love
You looking
Perry
at
Lake.
you looking at a map?
Yeah.
Good job.
I used to drive around there sometimes for Amazon.
Oh yeah. Wow, you went that far out?
Yeah.
Wow, look
crazy.
at you. Jeez, all right. Good for you, man. I like having you here better. So the parents are right there in Valley Falls. And yesterday, Tony DeCopel asks President Trump, hey, what's your message to Renee Good's father? And I thought it was a fair question, and I thought the president handled it very well when he said this.
I've got an important question about the situation in Minnesota, the death of Renee Nicole Good. I've been speaking to her father, who is a big supporter of yours, like many Americans are, but he's heartbroken right now.
I can understand that.
He's heartbroken because his daughter is dead, that's
Sure.
obvious. He's also heartbroken because your administration so quickly has come out and said she's a domestic terrorist. What do you want to say to her father right now?
Well, I want to say to the father that I love all of our people. They can be on the other side. As you say, he might be on my side.
He is on your side.
And I think that's great. And I do. I think it's great. And I would bet you that she, under normal circumstances, was a very solid, wonderful person. But, her actions were pretty tough. I've seen it many ways and many different shapes and forms. But the bottom line is, look, we have hundreds of thousands of murderers in our countries, killers. ICE is trying to get them out. They were let in through an open border policy of Sleepy Joe Biden. ICE is working very hard to get them out. Their job is being made very, very difficult. And, when you look at that tape, it can be viewed two ways, I guess. But when you look at the way that car was pulled away, there are a couple of versions of that tape that are very, very bad.
So first off, I thought one of the mistakes the administration made right out of the gates, and I don't know if this was Kristi Noem or Trump or whoever, but their first goal should have been to lower the temperature. And by immediately saying, hey, Renee Good is a domestic terrorist, is she a knucklehead getting in the way of law enforcement? Absolutely. Is she committing felonies leading up to her tragic death? Yes. Domestic terrorist is strong, and at a time when you want to bring the temperature down for everybody, lobbing that out there is just like, boom, let's throw a bomb into this whole thing. So that was a fair question by Tony to President Trump. And then President Trump, I think overall, handles that pretty well and says, listen, I get it. We're both fathers. I understand the notion of obviously loving your daughter and not wanting that to happen to anybody that you care about or even anybody that you don't know. And the president says, I love all our people. They can be on either side. That's great. And he also goes to say, when you look at, what she was doing, those were obviously not good things. And her decisions in part, and I'm paraphrasing here what the president says, but her decisions in part led to that tragic outcome. Her actions were pretty tough, is what President Trump said there. And that's fair. And this is not a guy who's like Mr. Empathy or sympathy. That's just not his style, right? But by his standards, that was fairly sympathetic from the president of the United States. And that's a good thing. Because right now, the way that he continues to, I think, win on the issue is by blending, yes, tough policies, getting bad people out of the country who have been allowed in, but then also having a little bit of that empathy and sympathy in tragic situations like this, or just for the situation in general. And that's how he ends up, I believe, winning more of the American public onto his side on this thing. And you heard some of that last night in that interview on CBS. And he said here, I would bet you that she, under normal circumstances, was a very solid, wonderful person, which makes you wonder how this individual got radicalized. And we don't have those answers yet. We don't know. I think there's probably more to come. What was her partner's involvement in all this? She seemed like a crazy radical, and those are still fair questions to ask. We have a lot of questions after this tragedy in the Northland with a young father. We'll ask those coming up. We'll dub it Buttergate because we need another one of those gates, 1587 allegedly was claiming it was selling items and using butter from Chateau Butter and using Betty Ray's ice cream, which is owned by Matt Chateau, even though they were not using either product for a period of time. Here's the story from the Kansas City Star. 1587 Prime, that is the Mahomes-Kelsey restaurant inside the Lowe's Hotel, accused of a bait-and-switch by local vendor. Until Monday morning, when the Star inquired, 1587 Prime's website listed Betty Ray's Ice Cream and Chateau Milk Company among its local partners. Matt Chateau, who owns both companies, said he'd been hearing for months that servers at 1587 have been telling customers the butter on the table is made by Chateau Milk, and the ice cream is courtesy of Betty Ray's. The problem is, according to Chateau, it's not. I have not been to 1587 Prime. I was with somebody last week who can basically buy whatever they want. Like, there are no strings attached to their monetary decisions. They can buy almost anything that they want. I mean, like, outside of a private jet, this person could buy anything. And this person said to me, Pete, I've been to 1587, and I'll tell you right now, I ain't going back unless somebody else is paying. Just based on principle. He's like, I just couldn't justify it. And he's been back because somebody else paid for it, but but that was it. He's like, it's just ridiculous. He said the prices are just out of control. And this was coming from someone who, once again, can buy whatever they want. So the story goes on the note here that 1587 has not served Chateau Butter since its pre-opening events back in early September. And the restaurant cut ties with Betty Ray's back in October after 1587 Prime management asked Betty Ray's to lower its wholesale prices to a level that would not have been profitable. Chateau said here to the Kansas City Star, we've been trying for months to get them to remove our name from the menu and stop telling customers they're serving our products. It diminishes our brand when you have a restaurant using some national co-op's butter or whoever they're now using while saying it's Chateau. I mean, that's a very reasonable request from Matt Chateau. 1587 said in a statement, our team is constantly sourcing the highest quality ingredients for the most favorable pricing. Unfortunately, it is not always viable to continue carrying a specific product, whether based on pricing, consistency issues, or other factors. This story makes 1587 look like garbage.
Look cheap.
They look cheap. They look like they were trying to brag. Yeah, look at us using local. We're all about the local guys. Leaving them on the menu for months after they open up when they weren't even using them. And here's the amazing part, too. Matt Chateau tells the Kansas City Star, we were selling them our ice cream for less than $1 a scoop. They're turning around and selling it for $9 a scoop. And it was 1587 that asked Betty Ray's Chateau to lower the price on the ice cream sales when they're 9Xing the price on a scoop of ice cream. Matt tells the Kansas City Star it felt like too much to ask of us, especially since our business is not reliant on selling ice cream to 1587 Prime. I just felt like I didn't want to be pushed around by these guys just because they think they have enough brand equity to come in and demand even lower prices from local folks. Good for him, man. I think, you know what? That's my kind of guy right there. And we've had Matt on the show. I reached out to him. I texted him late last night. I have not heard back from him yet. But I can't wait. I cannot wait to get him on the show to stick it to 1587. Not that I have anything against 1587, but to his point, you know, these guys come in, and this is not, to be clear, this is not like Travis Kelce and Patrick making this decision, right? They have no idea this is going on.
Right.
They don't have a clue. It's not about Patrick. It's not about Travis. It's about these meatheads who run these places who use the brand equity of Mahomes and Kelce to try to bully guys like Matt Chateau. And he basically told them to pound sand. He did. And then when they wouldn't come back and at least take their name off the menu, he's finally got to go to the media. The only thing I can give Matt a hard time for is not coming to us first. That's the only thing, but it's fine. I'm totally over it. It's all good, man. I'll get him on the show soon. He's fantastic. And love Betty Ray's, love what they do, love the business, love the ice cream. All right? I mean, every time my father-in-law is here, I got 4 pints of Betty Ray's in the freezer for him. He just loves it. So it's all good. But I love this sticking up for the little guy thing that he's doing here and not letting these guys bully around local businesses and local distributors. So he goes on the note here in the Kansas City Star, 1587 Prime confirmed in late October it would no longer place orders from Betty Ray's. So now it goes on the note here. He said Betty Ray's final delivery was on September 23rd. Now, it's theoretically possible that 1587 continued drawing from that inventory well into the fall, but by now, he said there's no way they should be pitching anything on the menu as Betty Ray's. I mean, we're now into mid-January. So, I don't know where this goes from here, but I guess if you go to 1587, and some of you who have been there probably know this, they brag about their relationships with some of the local businesses who may be suppliers of different things that they serve. And Matt's saying, "Hey, that's disingenuous," and I'm good with that. I like him calling them out on that
Symbolism
front.
Over substance.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we put a bow in the 7 o'clock hour, the Royals are moving in their home run fences. They will keep center field at 410 feet, but they'll move them in about 8 to 10 feet from the foul pole, and then they'll also move them in about 8 to 10 feet in the gaps, left center, right center, and they're going to lower the outfield wall from 10 feet to 8.5 feet. Now, Mark, I know you've done the deep dive on this. Should we be happy with this for the Royals?
If you want more offense, if you want more runs, if you want 4 Royals last year would have had over 40 home runs if this had been the case last year, it's insane.
4 Royals would have hit 40 home runs?
Yeah, Maikel Garcia would have had 24 more home runs last year.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he had a lot of doubles that went off the wall that would have been home runs in the new park.
Wow.
Or the new.
Yeah, the new park. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Oh, sorry, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Continue with
I
the
remember
numbers.
when Bo Jackson played there and he ran up the wall. Good thing it was 10 foot then, or he'd have been over the backside. Plus, he threw out Harold Reynolds. This was in the Kingdome, but from the warning track, he threw him out at home. The ball didn't bounce. So, piece of cake for Bo to throw somebody out from the warning track now.
All right, there's John Anthony going down memory lane from 45 years ago. Mark, continue with the numbers, please.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino, Salvi Perez, they all would have hit 40 home runs or more. And it just seems like with Jack Caglione coming up, he's a home run hitter. Carter Jensen at the end of last season, they're going to have 6 guys that could hit, 30, 40 home runs.
Okay. Well, I don't have a problem with teams basically building ballparks to fit their needs, right? I mean, move these things in, move them back if you have a team that maybe is more geared towards not hitting home runs, and it's all good. I joked yesterday on social media, though. I said, what if this was phase 1 of the Royals saying, we're staying at the K and renovating? How about that? There you go. Oh, my gosh. There's a total 180 for you.
You know what they could be doing, though?
What?
Dimensions for a new stadium. Like, if this is good for them, maybe they'll keep these dimensions in the next stadium.
Oh, gosh. The way they're moving, the snail's pace.
Suddenly Washington Square Park fits right inside Kaufman.
Yeah. They'll play on the rooftop at Union Station. That's what they'll do. Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, that's great news. Wow. Suddenly the Royals are going to be power packing it. 40 home runs all over the place around that lineup. I like it. I like it a lot. So I never want to overreact to some of the ideas that are coming out of state capitals the first week of the legislative session, because how this always goes is sometimes you get ideas that get thrown out there. It's guys looking for attention, like that goober over in the St. Louis side of the state who's like, we're going to make the Missouri Battlehawks the football team of Missouri. It's like, really? And he's like some diehard conservative, but he's upset about the Chiefs, so they're going to make the Battlehawks the official football team of Missouri.
Can you get one of those TOD things like they put on a car title so when they fold,
yeah,
we can get the next team will be automatically elevated?
You realize how embarrassing that is? I mean, you're better off not having a official football team in your state than making it the Battlehawks of the, UFL or whatever it is. So you just get bad ideas. It's people looking for attention, things like that. But this one in Kansas, I'm intrigued by. Kansas lawmakers today are expected to introduce new legislation aimed at regulating electric scooters across the state. This follows the tragic death of the 10-year-old boy, Duke Omert, a 4th grader, who was killed riding his e-scooter in Leawood just a few weeks ago. That happened in October. So what they're looking at, and I know that there are local municipalities who have added multiple layers of rules governing where and how these devices can be used. Prairie Village has done that. Shawnee has done that. Some Johnson County shopping centers have also acted, banning e-bikes and e-scooters from their properties. But now this issue is supposed to be taken up by the state house. I think it can actually be done in a pretty bipartisan way. Like, unless you're just worried about government overreach, which I understand. But to me, this is just like having laws for driving vehicles. We have age limits or age minimums, I guess you would say. We have a lot of rules and regulations and restrictions. And right now, these e-bikes and e-scooters feel like they just do whatever they want. I mean, I was almost hit by one in the neighborhood. This guy flies around on his e-scooter, or actually, I think he's on an e-bike. And I'll go for like a run Saturday morning, and this time of year, it's still dark out. And he's got his, he's got all his lights on, and he's got his, bells ringing around town and whatnot. And, he almost hit me on that thing. And then another guy, unless it was the same guy, it might have been the same guy. I was walking the girls in the double stroller the other day, and I mean, he almost rams into me too. And I'm like, dude, would you act like a vehicle, which is what you are on these e-bikes? They move, man. They move. This is not a guy who's just, out for a joyride on his bike. They move. So the proposed legislation in Topeka is expected to be introduced and will go through the standard committee process. If approved, it would advance to the full House or Senate for debate, marking the first statewide effort to address e-scooter safety in Kansas. I don't know why you wouldn't do this. And it feels like it's such an easy thing to do. Unless there's big scooter lobbyists in Topeka right now who are going to try to make sure that they squash this thing, and I don't think we're at the point yet where Big Scooter has lobbyists, then this should easily pass. This should be a no-brainer. Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals should all be on board with this, because what it's really about is about public safety. And not just, by the way, safety for pedestrians and safety for, regular people walking around or biking around on regular bikes. It's also safety for the individuals using these scooters and using these e-bikes, because they're putting themselves also in a lot of harm. And you see these teenagers flying around, and I'm not like, hey, get off my lawn, kid. Like, I've got little kids myself. They may want to ride these things one day. And if you have state rules and state laws and state regulations, you help everybody in the process instead of cities and having to deal with this. And then you've also got, shopping centers having to deal with this. So that's something I hope that they get done and get done quickly, even though nothing seems to happen as quickly and easily as it should in these state houses. You had the State of the State yesterday as well from Laura Kelly. And Laura Kelly, I'm watching this thing yesterday, and I was waiting for some commentary on the Chiefs. And she gave it to you, and it was even more out of touch than I would have expected, and really just disingenuous.
We were able to accomplish this amazing feat for two reasons. First, we made Kansas a place the Chiefs want to call home, with a strong economy, a strong workforce, strong communities, and of course, an extraordinary fan base. And second, because a bipartisan team of leaders in this chamber, along with the local officials we just recognized, and many members of my administration, worked together to make this happen.
Such a cute soundbite.
The Chiefs were not wooed to Kansas because of the economy, the workforce, or the fan base. They were wooed to Kansas because Kansas gave them everything that they wanted. And it was a better deal from the government than what Missouri offered. That's it. And from what I heard from somebody in the know last week, they're convinced that this thing did come down to the 11th hour. The Chiefs went in with one final ask, and basically they said that the Kansas politicians jump, and the Kansas politicians just said, yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Donovan. How high? Yes, Mr. Hunt. How high must I jump? And the Chiefs said 10 feet, and they say, sir, we'll go 11. Sir, we'll go to 12. Whatever you need, sir. And Donovan's like, Can't turn this down. I'd be moronic to turn this down. And that's apparently how it went down on that final maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the week before the announcement on Monday, John.
With the reduction of the Royals' wall height, I was thinking we would have to factor in outfielders' vertical leap. But the politicians too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the GOP guys are debating here in a couple of weeks. I want to see Clark Hunt show up, and he says jump, and I want to see who jumps the highest. That's what I want to see. Okay. But, it's got nothing to do with the state's economy. It was all about the incentive package. You look at the state of Kansas and U.S. News and World Report, they rank all the states based on economy. And the best ones are Florida, Texas, Utah, Idaho, Arizona, North Carolina. I mean, those are the best economic states. You look at most rankings and they have those states near the top, right? Kansas's economy, U.S. News and World Report, and it's one data point, but it's one that, listen, business leaders look at and people value. And they've got Kansas sitting right now at, where's the latest numbers? They've got it at mid-30s, 34. Number 34. All right, the workforce for the Chiefs is not going to change. The people at the corporate offices right now at Arrowhead are going to be the same ones that end up in Olathe. They weren't drawn because now they're going to fire all the Missourians and just hire Kansas people to go to K10 and Ridgeview, where the reported offices are going to be. It's got nothing to do with it. It's the same workforce. It's the same exact pool of people you're pulling from, whether you're Arrowhead or you're 20 minutes down the road. And then she's like, the fan base. The fan base is the same too. She's acted like they moved to Kansas because the Chiefs fans in Kansas are like more diehard than they are in Missouri, which I'm not playing that game. It's the same pool of people. She acts like there was a relocation involved here, right? Like there was no NFL team and the Jacksonville Jaguars decided to move to Kansas City because of the economy and the workforce and the fan base. If that was the example, then what she said there may ring true. If you have a team moving from out of state to Kansas City, you can highlight the economy, the workforce, and the fan base. When you're moving 20 minutes down the road, none of that changes, and all of it is irrelevant. But this is the grift that's been going on from these politicians, from Laura Kelly on down, Democrats and Republicans, for the last 3.5 weeks now on this deal. So I didn't think it was going to end, or she was going to stop or not mention it yesterday in the State of the State. But even I was just blown away by how it was framed by the governor of Kansas. And maybe I shouldn't have been. Maybe that's shame on me. But they gave up the farm. I mean, this is, in many respects, the 80-year-old guy with a 30-year-old girlfriend who thinks she actually loves him for who he is. That's what this is. The state of Kansas thinks that Clark Hunt and Mark Donovan and the Chiefs actually love them for who they are and for who Kansas is and what Kansas is. They don't care about any of that. They got the best deal. The Chiefs said jump, and the Kansas politicians said how high. And that's why they're going to Kansas. It is Bill Belichick and his little girlfriend running around Chapel Hill right now. That's what it is. And they continue to try to convince themselves that they're actually being loved by the 25-year-old. And they're not. They're being used.